is Edith Neumeyer, and I'm the author of the book, The Mystery of Adam. Today I'm going to kind of summarize this timeline of when the tribulation happens, when the rapture happens, and when the wrath of God starts. Okay? Many people believe false doctrine. Now, where do they get this false doctrine? They get it, of course, from false teachers. And where did these false teachers get it? They got it from people like Scofield. So everybody knows I hope everybody knows the Scofield commentary Bible or study Bible. That's what Scofield taught. And Scofield had it from, what was this guy? I don't remember what his guy's name, but he started this doctrine of dispensationalism. Okay, that is wrong. Okay, that is wrong. There is not this timeline where there is this tribulation at the end with this Antichrist, one man Antichrist. This is false teaching, and it is not even in the Bible. Okay, what is in the Bible, I'm going to show you, I hope, methodically today. First, let's look at what Jesus said himself in John 16:33. He said, "In this world you will have tribulation." So that's in John 16:33. So all saints, he's talking to all saints. He's talking to his followers. He says that we will have tribulation. Tribulation is what is caused by Satan. Okay? Because Satan wants to destroy the saints. And this has happened from the beginning of the church. Okay? From the beginning of the church. Because the tribulation overlaps, the time of the tribulation overlaps with the time of the Gentiles. Okay? So I'm going to show that next. In Matthew 24:29, okay, he says, when the time of the Gentiles is fulfilled. Okay? Well, actually, that's what Luke says in Luke 21:24. He says, when the times of the Gentiles is fulfilled. Matthew says in Matthew 24:29, he says, immediately after the tribulation of those days. Now, following both of these statements is the sun going dark and the moon losing its shine, or the signs that are happening in the heavenly. Okay, Luke says the signs that are happening in the heavenly, and Matthew is talking about the sun going dark and the moon losing its shine. I think Mark 13 says the same thing. Now, these overlap. Okay, these events overlap. We know that Luke, Matthew, and Mark describe the same event. Mark in chapter 13, Luke in 24, and Matthew in 24. Did I say them all? Luke in 21. Okay, so they all overlap. And the common thing is when the sun goes dark or something happens, with the heavenly bodies. Okay, and when havoc starts. So that is when the tribulation ends. That is also when the time of the Gentiles end. So when does the tribulation start? It starts from the beginning when Jesus explains all the signs that will happen when the temple is going to be destroyed. It also starts when the time of the Gentiles start. Okay? That's very important. Now we're going to go to the next proof for this. Revelation 6:12 tells you about the same event when the sun goes dark and the moon loses its shine. All those are the same events. Okay, that is very, very, very important. So when we go to Revelation 6, we hear that 6:12, we hear, like I said, the same thing. It's the sixth seal. And at the end, when we go to verse 16 and 17, we hear that now the wrath of God starts. So this changing of the sun and the moon and things are going crazy is a sign that the wrath is starting. Okay? Very important. So then we go to the fourth point. So after that, we see in Revelation that the saints are in heaven. Okay? That is very, very important too. We go to Revelation 7, and to look that one up. Revelation 7, and it is 9. Okay? 7:9. After this, I behold, and lo, a great multitude which no man could number, of all nations and kindreds and people and tongues, stood before the throne and before the Lamb, clothed with white robes and palms in their hands. Okay? Now, who is that? That can only be the bride of Christ. Okay? Nobody else. There's nobody else. Okay? That means they have been raptured. Okay? They have been taken out. After the tribulation, of course, and after the time of the Gentiles, the church is raptured. And so now the saints are in heaven. So now we hear that these saints came out of great tribulation. Okay, so you can see that in verse 14, that these saints came out of great tribulation. That is all very important. And I know it can be very confusing, but read these verses again, because these verses are very important. So there is a progression. And if you have more than one witness, you have Matthew, Luke, and Mark as witness, and then you even have John, who is telling you about the same event. Okay? Please, let's be very clear. Revelation never describes a period of time called the Great Tribulation. Revelation always uses wrath of God. This was the only time when we see about Great Tribulation. The saints, when was it? Revelation 7:14. When we see that the saints come out of Great Tribulation. Okay? It has nothing to do with this, the Great Tribulation. It's just plain tribulation. They come out of Great Tribulation. Okay? And that's what we also see, of course, with Matthew, when he says, immediately after the tribulation of those days. That's all he says. Immediately after those tribulation. Okay? He's not talking about the Great Tribulation. Okay? So this is the same thing. So we see that the saints that are now in heaven came out of Great Tribulation. And why are they in heaven? Because the wrath is starting. And the rapture happened. And the tribulation is over. And the time of the Gentiles is over. I hope that makes sense, because it's very simple in a sense, but it also can be confusing when we have listened to these false doctrines, when we have been indoctrinated into false teachings. I was there, okay? I was there because I have struggled many years with revelation and this whole end time stuff, and it never fit together in my logical brain. It never fit together, okay? The Holy Spirit was telling me, wait a minute, something is wrong. Something is wrong. It just doesn't fit together. So I had to actually study it myself. I had to throw everything out that I knew from the beginning, all the indoctrination that I had undergone in the churches that I went to. And they were all evangelical churches. I had to throw it out, and I had to start from scratch. Okay? So this is what the Holy Spirit has shown me. Okay? Most people, or many people, confuse the wrath of God with tribulation, or the great tribulation. Okay? Again, John in Revelation never uses the word tribulation to define this period, what he calls the wrath of God. He's always mentioning the wrath of God. Matter of fact, he mentions the wrath of God 3 times. Once with the 7 trumpets, once, and that's in chapter 8 through 11, once in chapter 16, and then there's another one in chapter 15. The chapter 16 is the 7 bowls, and then there's 7 plagues, but he never really explains in detail the 7 plagues in chapter 15. But 3 times he tells about the wrath of God, and he describes it. It's the same event. You can actually overlap the 7 trumpets and the 7 bowls. Very good. Okay, you do a study, you will see that they actually overlap. So John never, says that this is called the Great Tribulation. Yes, of course, the unbelievers will go through Great Tribulation, but it's really not tribulation. It is the wrath of God. It is punishment. Okay, it is punishment. And nobody is trying to deceive them. Nobody is trying to take their faith away. God is destroying them. During the wrath, God destroys the beast system, the harlot, or Babylon the Great, and all the unbelievers. Well, he's not destroying all believers, but probably most of them. If you look at the wrath of God in Revelation, there is no way that anybody can survive that. And of course, people will survive, but only a few will really survive. Nobody has to be afraid about, if you're a true Christian, you don't have to be afraid to go into or to end up in the wrath of God. That is just extremely obvious that you will not end up in the wrath of God. Okay? So when you look at Isaiah 26 and look at verse 19 through 21, it shows you clearly that the believers will not go into the wrath. They will be in their rooms that Jesus prepared during that time. There is going to be in verse 19 of Isaiah 26, there's the rapture, the first resurrection of the saints, okay, that will go into the rapture. And then, of course, the people that are left over will be raptured as well and will go into the rooms. It says clearly, hide in the rooms until the wrath has passed. And then 21 describes the wrath that is coming upon this earth, okay? So it's very clearly, if you know things ahead of time, you will know what happens. So, I have more points on here. Of course, that's what I just talked about, the what the wrath of God is for. Okay, and it's very nicely described in Isaiah 26. Now, let's get to the next point, which is really a good point as well. When we look at Luke 21:26, we can actually pinpoint the day or the rapture more closely, because I know a lot of people are interested in that. When is the rapture going to happen? Again, we are going through the tribulation right now. You don't have to worry. We are lucky people, okay? I know people say, oh, nothing is happening right now. Yeah, for the last 250 years, people in the United States actually were lucky. Yes, they were. But look at Europe. Most people left the church in Europe. They have been deceived through culture and all the stuff that's happening in society. They have been deceived and misled. The churches are empty in Europe. Okay? So, yeah, they are already gone, people. People say the great falling away has not happened. My goodness, we've been falling away since the Roman Catholic Church was founded. So yeah, these signs, and I did make a video about that the signs have already been fulfilled and the rapture can happen any day. Okay? There is no more signs to be fulfilled. Please do not make a mistake. Some people say, oh, the man of perdition has to sit in the temple of God. He already sat in the temple of God. And I'm not going to talk about that today, because if you want to see that, look at my video, okay, that says what has to be fulfilled in order for the rapture to happen on the Feast of Trumpets. I think that's what my video is called. So I'm not going to talk about that today. But we already can pinpoint when it will happen, okay? I can pinpoint that it will be before the wrath as well, okay? And after the tribulation. Very clear. So look at Luke 21:28. It says, when these things begin to take place, stand up and lift up your heads, because your redemption is drawing near. He is saying that again to the believers. Okay, he's saying that to the believers. He says, look up your head. When these things happen, look up your head, because your redemption is drawing near. That means Jesus is returning. The bridegroom is returning. Jesus is returning. This is the clue. This is the clue when Jesus is returning. Okay, this is just very pinpointing. Okay, when is Jesus returning? Now, of course, now we have to say, okay, when are these things, it says, when these things begin to take place. What is he talking about? Well, look at the verse prior. Okay, look at the verses prior. Start with verse 25. There will be signs in the sun, moon, and stars. What have we just talked about? We just talked about that. And I said that just before that, the rapture will happen. Okay? And after that, that is kind of the kick-off for the wrath of God. So we have already discussed that. But when you look at Luke 21:28, you see that very clearly. He said, when these things start to happen, so the signs in the moon and the sun and the stars and all the elements are going nuts. Okay? The catastrophic events are starting. This is what's happening today, people. Okay? We are having these catastrophic events starting. And I'm not saying we are in the wrath of God right now. We are not fully in the wrath of God, but it's gearing up. And if you want to be blind and do not see these things that Matthew, Luke, and Mark, and John in Revelation told you, then you are blind and you will miss the rapture. You will not be looking up. You will not be looking up for your Redeemer to come back, for your bridegroom to repent. Because he says it clearly, when these things begin to take place, stand up and lift your heads, because your redemption is drawing near. Again, what kinds of things? Well, go back. There will be signs in the sun, moon, and stars. We saw this where? In Luke 25, 21, 25, in Matthew 29, look up Mark 13, somewhere in there. And of course, we already said Revelation 6:12. Okay? So this is so obvious. It tells you right then and there when the rapture will happen. Look at the crazy weather. Look at the fires in California. Look at the crazy weather right now in Colorado. We are freezing to death. And it is October. It is October. We had 3 days of cold, nasty weather, and it's not changing. I'm talking nasty weather, like minus 14 degrees during the day. That is not normal. It's not normal. We are still in fall right now, not winter. Okay? That is even crazy for Colorado. We have so many things happening. Okay? Volcanoes going crazy. Earthquakes galore. We have so many things happening. And not even talking about, again, that the pole is getting ready to shift. Okay, people are saying that. Why? Because the pole is moving really rapidly towards Siberia. And they have to constantly adjust the magnetic lines, okay, that the airplanes are going by. They have to adjust those constantly because it's shifting so fast. There are so many things happening, and when you open your eyes right now, you see them happening. Forget about the man of lawlessness sitting in the temple. He is already sitting in the temple. That is another video in itself. Okay, the falling away has already happened. People, so many people just focus on the United States. They have no idea about the 2,000 years of Christian history. No idea. Okay? So please start studying the history, the past history, the 2,000 years history since the destruction of the temple and the start of the what Jesus called the time of the Gentiles. Okay? Study that. Study the time of the Gentiles, the 2,000 years. And you see all the things that have happened. And right now, we're coming to an end of these 2,000 years. Okay? This is significant. We're now coming to the end of 6,000 years. Okay? That's why it's even more significant. Because we're coming to the end of 6,000 years. And when the 6,000 years are over of human history, then the reign of Christ, the last day, the last 1,000 years will start. Okay? There is no in between or anything fiddly-doo, daddly-da in between. Okay? Nothing, people. It goes from 6,000 years to the next 7,000 years. And we are finishing up the 6,000 years. And we are seeing the signs that are happening. And Jesus said, when you see those signs, look up, because your redemption is drawing near. And we're not going to have 7 more years. I'll guarantee you that. We may have 3.5 years of wrath of God. That is very possible, people. We may have 3.5 years of the wrath of God. That is very possible. I don't know how long the wrath of God lasts. Okay, so many people say, well, 3.5 years because of the 2 witnesses. And let's talk about the 2 witnesses. The 2 witnesses are mentioned after the, I believe, the 6th trumpet. So it's part of the wrath of, the 2 witnesses are part of the wrath of God. Okay? So it's very possible. At the beginning of the wrath of God, in chapter 7 of Revelation, there are 144,000 sealed. And I believe these sealed people are going through the wrath of God. Whereas the church or the saints were raptured. Same in chapter 7. Very, very, very important. That's a very important chapter. Because, you know, the people on this earth are seeing the wrath that's coming, but God is saying, stop. Don't move yet. I have to do something very important. And of course, that is the rapture. And that is sealing the people that are going through the wrath of God. Now, make no mistake, people. The people that are being sealed, the 144,000, are not part of the bride and will never be part of the bride. They will be living on the earth during the 1,000-year reign of Christ. Okay? They will be human beings during that time. And I don't want to go too deep into these 2 resurrections that are following the wrath of God. Okay? Because these 144,000 will be in the first resurrection that John mentioned in Revelation 20. Okay? But they will not be part of the bride of Christ. They will be on this earth as human beings. Okay? And they will have a chance to live out their lives as a human being during that time of the reign of Jesus and his bride. Okay? So you can look that up as well. Revelation 20. And of course, Revelation 7, the 144,000. Oh, and make no mistake. And I don't remember where in Revelation, what chapter, this 144,000, that number comes up again. But that number is not the same people. That number is the raptured church again, the raptured bride. It is another picture. Oh, they are on Mount Zion, and they are the raptured bride. Okay, they're the same as the multitude, but this time he uses 144,000, which is only a symbolic number. It is not an actual number. Okay, even in chapter chapter 7, it's only symbolic. Okay, symbolic. And I believe it symbolizes all people that are actually will make it through the rapture. I mean, through the wrath of God. They may die, many of them will die, but they still will be saved, or they will be resurrected at the end if they die. And I believe most of them will die. Okay, and they will be resurrected at the end, but they're sealed. But they're not part of the bride of Christ. That is very important too. Okay, because some people want to know that as well. So I think I kind of gave you in a nutshell, or in a methodical, I hope it makes sense what I have said. I hope I gave you a summary of tribulation, rapture, and the wrath of God. Okay? That is, if you have any questions, if I didn't clarify something, oh, please let me know on the bottom. I am just so happy about people who comment, who give me encouragement, and who give me advice, because I don't see everything either. Okay, Paul clearly says, now we see in part. So it takes all of us to put things together. And I really want to thank people that have really, encouraged me to make another video about this. And another thing, I want to really thank my subscribers. I actually have 400 subscribers, and I am so happy. See, now I'm going to go for 500 subscribers, I guess. But again, it's in the Lord's hands. I am sure it is in his hands. And whoever needs to see my videos, I am sure will see my videos. There is no doubt in my mind. But I will come to an end. And as usual, please look at these scriptures again. I will put them on the bottom. And let the Holy Spirit guide you always, because he's the only one who can open your eyes. But he will only open your eyes if you're really willing to see the truth. And lots of people are not willing to see the truth. So, anyways, let the Holy Spirit guide you.